ladies and gentlemen, it is week 4 college game week with Jeremy Green and Ryan Doyle. I am Josh Pate. Jeremy, some things we saw happen in week 3. Georgia struggles to get past South Carolina and Columbia. That was a 14-7 final. The Bulldogs barely escaped with a win. Auburn with a 3-2 win over Mississippi State in Starkville. One of us up here called a close game. It was not you. Charlie Weiss and the Fighting Irish over Michigan big, but they do not escape unscathed as Charlie Weiss tears both his MCL and his ACL. Doctors are saying he is doubtful for this Saturday's game. Among the teams with impressive wins this weekend, Wisconsin over Fresno State, North Carolina beats Rutgers down on Thursday night, and South Florida topples Kansas in the final seconds of that game. Jeremy, what stood out most to you in week 3?
Well, the biggest thing that stands out to me, USC.
For the second week.
They're now the definite front runner for the national championship. But I think Oklahoma and Missouri close on their heels. They're right back there. All three very impressive teams. And right now what I kind of want to do is look at some BCS spoilers maybe for this year. You talk about a team going undefeated in the regular season. 3-0 East Carolina, BYU, and Utah. Teams that are out there, not real tough schedules. Now, BYU and Utah play each other November 6th, so they're not both going to, but 3 teams to keep your eye on, both 3-0 so far.
Some people circled East Carolina at Tulane as a trap game. Skip Holtz and the Pirates barely survived that game. They do lose their best linebacker. We'll see how that affects them as the season goes on. Everybody's talking about USC, and they did look like a borderline NFL team against Ohio State. They mopped the floor with them in the Coliseum. But let's turn our attention to Ohio State. Where does this program go from here? And as it relates to the picture in the Big Ten, does this open that conference up, or are they still the class of the Big Ten?
Well, Ohio State, without a doubt, brought back to earth on Saturday. Deflated, demeaned, just embarrassed right now. However, the only 2 teams that I see posing a threat to them are Penn State, who really, so far, you played Oregon State, Syracuse, Coastal Carolina. Nobody yet. Haven't impressed me yet. Wisconsin. Wisconsin was three missed field goals from Fresno State away from losing on Saturday. So neither one of those teams have impressed me yet. I think Ohio State definitely brought back to the pack a little bit, but it wasn't a conference loss. I still think they have a chance to run through that conference.
Hey, listen, talk about the missed field goals all you want to. My hat's off to Wisconsin for even going ahead and playing that game. They talked on the broadcast about a lot of teams backing out of the opportunity to play Fresno State. That was not an easy atmosphere or an easy game to play. Big tip of the cap to the Badgers in Wisconsin. You talk about Wisconsin and Penn State, I agree with you there. And talent-wise, those may be the only 2 teams that can come close to stacking up with the Buckeyes. But I think you got to look at a game at Michigan State. They had to go there the week before they played Penn State at home. I think if you look in terms of a look-ahead game, this may be a tough game for Ohio State. I'm not calling them losing this game, but I think there are 3 opportunities, along with the 2 you mentioned, this one in addition, as potential roadblocks in Ohio State running the slate and going undefeated. Beanie Wells, obviously a difference maker. Do we see a healthy season from him the rest of the season?
Well, I don't know. I really expected him to play on Saturday, and I think everybody in the country did. But Jim Tressel, true to his word, left him out. So there must really be a problem with Beanie Wells. But I believe that, like you said, he is the difference maker. If he plays, it's tough for anybody to knock off Ohio State.
Ohio State still the favorite, but watch out for those 3 teams. All right, we've had 3 weeks to sit here and dissect some of these teams across the country. The top 25 poll out for week 4. Some surprises in there. We have some overrated teams and some underrated teams. In terms of overrated teams, who do you circle so far through 3 weeks?
Right now, I look to Lubbock and Texas Tech. Now, let's be honest. Texas Tech is going to score points with that offense. Graham Harrell, Michael Crabtree, just athleticism and the ability to score at any moment. But, Josh, what wins championships?
Well, I would say coaching and defense.
Okay, they would. But what wins ball games?
Scoring more points than the other team.
Correct. So Texas Tech has a chance to really go through and win a bunch of games this year. But in the big games, I'm talking Oklahoma, Texas, I'm talking conference championships, I don't know if they're physical enough and if they play enough defense to be considered an elite team. I also want to look down the road in Tallahassee to Florida State. The Seminoles are a dynasty in college football. They really are. They're up there in that elite class. But so far, you played Western Carolina and Chattanooga. Chattanooga, the Mocs. I'm still not sure what that mascot is, but that's who they beat. I'm just really not impressed with them so far. They jumped into the polls this week at number 24. So I think you have to look at those 2 teams maybe a little overrated right now in the season.
I'm going to agree with you on Florida State. This is a team that was 7-6 last year, and like you said, has played a very, very weak schedule, to say the least, so far this season. 7-6 a year ago means a big turnaround needed in Tallahassee because, as you mentioned, expectations are high in Tallahassee, and that is an elite program, and they think they deserve better than that. That being said, they have a chance this weekend with Wake Forest coming into town, one of our spotlight games that we'll discuss a little bit later on. It's a big game for them. They have a lot of big conference games at home this year. So they got a chance to maybe have a 9 or 10 win season this year. Still a long way to go, but they do have a chance. You look up the road at Auburn, Alabama, 3-2, a baseball game played in Starkville this weekend. Auburn's offense has looked beyond inept. You got Tony Franklin, the new offensive coordinator, in there. A lot of uneasiness in Auburn right now. A lot of people unhappy with what they've seen from the Tigers, and that coming from a program which has not been known for a prolific offense. But this is borderline ridiculous. That secondary has yet to be tested. And it will be tested this weekend as LSU rolls into town. That being our spotlight game. Auburn's ranked number 10 in the country right now. I think both those teams are a little overrated right now. But like I said, both with chances to prove me wrong this weekend. Let's flip the coin and look at underrated teams. When I look at an underrated team, I'm going to look at the Commodores at Vanderbilt. They are this close to being in the top 25 this week. The AP has them at 26. We need to get the Commodores some votes. They have a good chance to beat Ole Miss this week, and if they do, you got to think they'll make an appearance in the top 25, probably for the first time since I've been alive. I also look at the Mountain West Conference. Jeremy, this week alone, week 3, previous week, UNLV over Arizona State, New Mexico over Arizona, and BYU absolutely murders UCLA. That was a very, very pretty week. They are now 5-0 against the Pac-10, and I know people don't want to hear it, but you take the Mountain West and stack it up against the conference like the ACC or the Big East, I'm not so sure I would go with Mountain West right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you look at UCLA, wow, a huge win knocking off Tennessee, and then boom, BYU hits you right in the mouth, hanging 60. I mean, that was embarrassing. I have a few underrated teams that I want to look at, however. I agree with you on Vanderbilt. Just tip of the cap to Bobby Johnson, going with all the restraints that you have in Vanderbilt with academics and whatnot, to put a winning football team on the field for them, that's huge. And then I want to look at Missouri, ranked number 5 in the nation, the most underrated team maybe in a few years. They're just really looking impressive right now. That Chase Daniel to Jared McElwain combination, just wow, very impressive. I think Missouri and maybe one team that just because of that loss to UCLA, we're leaving out Tennessee. Maybe talking about later in the program. I mean, Rocky Top historically has been a big team. We're not really hearing anything about them. So those are 3 teams that I've kind of got my own, maybe a little bit underrated so far.
I'll tell you another young man that's been a little bit underrated thus far, and that's Ryan Doyle. Like him or not, that man went 4-1 with his picks against the spread in week 3. We're now going to send it to the Moneymaker Studios where you join a very happy and very rich Ryan Doyle for his picks in week 4.
4-1 last week, friends, and I am rich. Let's get down to business. Colorado, 2.5 against West Virginia. That's my upset of the week. Keep an eye on it. Penn State, -28 over Temple. I like it a lot. Make sure it doesn't get too much over 30. Vanderbilt, +6.5 over Ole Miss. Let's tease it up to 7.5 to be safe. LSU, -2.5 over Auburn. Let's keep it under 3. UNC, -2.5 to Vol Tech. I like that one a lot, guys. Miami, -4 over Texas A&M. Miami wins big. And Boise State, +10.5 against Oregon. Oregon's quarterback he's not with us this week. So back to you guys.